Hi, this is Jeff from the Ozark Mountains, that's in Missouri, in the USA. Well, this is episode 3 of our TRS-80 Model 4P series. And in this episode, we look at how we got this 4P to go from yellow to hello. It's quite the transformation. Well, without any further ado, let's jump right in and see how this worked. Thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring this episode. They offer an excellent quick-turn PCB prototyping service, which now has a free upgrade to the 150-160 temperature range. They also offer a wide range of services that allow you to go from idea to a finished product, including CNC machining, 3D printing, injection molding, PCB assembly. Go on over to PCBWay.com/OEM to find out more. One last thing to disassemble before we get to cleaning up and retro-writing the case is the keyboard. The keyboards can be kind of tricky sometimes, and I've not taken one of these apart before. So the first thing I did was look here in the service manual, and it doesn't say much other than there's 7 screws. And so I looked at the exploded parts diagram, which you see here, and we kind of get an idea of where those screws are. Sometimes the exploded parts diagram helps out a lot. And I was wondering what sort of keyboard this was. Was it have some type of electronics embedded in it? There are enough connections here, maybe, maybe not, but probably not. So I looked at the schematic diagram, which you can see here, and it looks like it's just a bunch of switches. So it should be fairly easy. Now, the manual said something about 7 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Thought I remembered reading something about having to take some pieces of rubber off, and we can see this rubber stuff here. It's not in great shape. I wonder if that was kind of added later. Some type of rubber strip, maybe 3/4 of a millimeter wide. Yeah, I think maybe this other black piece is the adhesive that was on there originally. Yeah, I'm guessing that's right. I have to find a replacement for this stuff. Every time I get started, the furnace turns on. It's amazing. I'll take a bit of a spudger here and scrape under the edge of this adhesive to work that off of there. Okay, got that black adhesive layer off, and use some WD-40 and a rag to clean up all the residue, and found another screw. So there are a total of 8 screws. As I recall, somewhere in the manual it said 8 and somewhere it said 7, so I'll have to go back and look at that again. And looky there. Look at the difference there in the color. Amazing. Oh, look at this. This says March 6th, 1985. Hey, look at that. The badge comes off that easily. Nifty. That way we can keep it out of the Retr0Brite solution. Oh, lots of fuzzy stuff in here. Yep, this is just a box of keys. And you know the drill by now. Take a picture of how the plug goes on there, just in case. That little camera is probably, I don't know, 15 years old. But it works great, especially at macros. So I just always keep it sitting on the desk. Okay. Yeah, the screws on the bottom side of that. Okay. You gotta lift up the back of this first and then pull it towards you. Oh, look. Another stink bug. Here we go. Okay. First task is bug in the trash. Now, this keyboard worked fine. It's dirty. It's made by Fujitsu. So we'll pop the keycaps off of here and give it a clean. These look like individual mechanical keys, so I don't think we'll be pulling this apart. Absolutely no reason to do that. And as for the rest of this, I think we can... Let's see. Can we sneak that through there? Yep, okay. Just gotta hold your mouth just right. So, our keyboard cable here is kind of symmetric. Interesting. I'm just gonna mark that lug on this end as black, meaning it goes on the keyboard part. Don't think it makes much difference, but we've already got some kinks in the wire here that match up to that. These feet just sit on there like that. And then these little brass things hook around here. Just wonder if those will slip out somehow. It's bent up a little on the bottom there, which makes it a little difficult to wrinkle out of there, so I think we'll just try to leave it. And we can throw these in the bucket to clean as well. Look, more bug parts. Oh, look, this part was made March 2nd, 1985. All right, getting the keycaps off of here isn't rocket surgery. Keycap puller, wiggle slightly. And boy, that is hard to budge. And have a look at that. Yep, it's coming. It's just been on there for 30-something odd years. Now, let's see what's happening. There's a piece of plastic here that the puller has a tendency to want to get caught on. So, yeah, that's going to be time consuming, but that's how it works. And just plonk it into some soapy water. Yep. Okay. So it'll take a while to get this one, but we'll get there. Well, this keyboard does not work well with a regular keycap puller. So I grabbed a couple of these spudgers, which have a little hooky do at one end. And I found if I pry up one edge of the key like this, and go under it like that, it'll pop the key off. It's relatively painless that way. Just gotta watch that it doesn't go flying across the room. For the space bar, after looking at this, I saw that it is connected with a little post right here. And if you just reach in there with your spudger and push down, you can pop the space bar off of these posts, which are fixed to a little springy rod that is under the plate here. So that's all there is to that. Now we'll try to get the decades of dust off of this keyboard frame. Just got a little mild cleanser on a rag here, and we'll just give everything a wipe down, and I'll try to stay away from the sticker so we don't ruin it. Some of this is just stained and we won't be able to get it off there, but we can at least make it cleaner. For those hard to get areas, you can take something like a spudger, put it on your rag, and run it through the little valleys in there. Now, to finish cleaning our keycaps, it's a really complicated matter. You need an old toothbrush and a couple buckets, and you just spend some time scrubbing the keys with the toothbrush. This takes a while, but it's kind of relaxing. I like doing it when I'm watching YouTube videos. So I can watch the videos I want to watch and get something accomplished at the same time. Little vintage computer restoration al fresco. It's not a bad day out today. I've had the 4P case parts soaking in this bucket of warm soapy water for an hour or so now. So we will take them out of there and give them a scrub. I've got some pumice type hand cleaner that we can use to. So after giving them a rough cleaning like this, let them soak a little more and then get a little more serious on the dirty spots with like a magic eraser or some of the hand cleaner, things like that. Thing is, before we Retr0Brite it, these need to be spick and span or it won't turn out right. Well, I finally got the covers all scrubbed up. It came up really good. The front cover, which was off a different machine, looks almost new. The bottom of the keyboard is just slightly discolored. The top of the keyboard and the front bezel are very yellow. And the main case was very yellow. And I'll pop a picture in here of the main case that's in the Retr0Brite tank over here. This is a rather hokey setup. That's the only container I had that was just big enough to put that whole case in. And when I say just big enough, there is about a centimeter between the top of the enclosure and the top of the tank when it's filled with water. H2O2. Now, I also took the empty bottles of hydrogen peroxide and filled with water, and I packed those inside the enclosure. That way they displaced the liquid, and I could get away with less hydrogen peroxide and distilled water mix. And I preheated the water before I put it in this time, so I'm starting out with water that's in the mid 30 C. So that's pretty good. I've got 4 20-watt heat mats on it, 2 on the bottom, 2 on the sides. And this is going to take a few days. It's the downside of this submersion method with the heat mat, but it's nice and gentle and it's very controllable. So when that's done, I can take out all of the bottles of water and put in these other 2 yellow pieces, and the liquid level inside the tank then will be much reduced, and I can then transfer that liquid into another storage container and use it again later. So we'll check on this from time to time and see how it's doing. Okay, it has been cooking for about 24 hours now. A little styrofoam there on top to keep the heat in. A very jerry-rigged styrofoam box which keeps falling apart. Maybe I'll get some hot glue and glue it together, make it really professional. Now this is noticeably warm. The temperature controller only says 30.2, but the temperature sensor is on the outside of the box, so I don't know how sealed it is. As you can see, the fluid level is like to there. It's right at the top. This is not a very good setup. And if we measure the temperature, it's about 44, 45 C. So nice and toasty warm. I put some of the smaller parts in separate bags. It just makes it easier to fish out later. Almost kind of, especially the keycaps. I don't want to have to fish a bunch of individual keycaps out of the soup. Oh, nuts. I forgot to put on gloves. That wasn't good. So I will make this as quick as possible since my hands are already in it. Wow, the keycaps are a lot better already. At the risk of dripping, still see some yellow on the space bar there, but those are looking really good. And the main cover here is, here I'll grab a dry glove to pick up the front bezel as a comparison. Here we go. So that has done a lot of good already in just 24 hours. Now, this is not the quickest way to do things, but it's nice and controllable and repeatable. Having to use this much liquid is not ideal at all. That is one big downside on this. I was a little afraid the top might not get as much action as the sides and bottom on this, but it doesn't seem to be a problem. There's this flap on the back here, which I can't see get open, but it wasn't yellow on the inside because that wasn't exposed to sunlight anyhow. Okay, and to get this lid back on, you've got to start at one side, get it latched over, bring the other side in. There we go. And latch the ends. Super hokey. Now, I think if I was to have done a proper redneck job on this, I would need to use duct tape instead of masking tape. But I was fresh out of ducks. And the 4 heat mats I have on here are 20 watts a piece, so about 80 watts, so it's not a lot of power. Well, the keycaps came out nice. It took about a day and a half, 2 days in the Retr0Brite solution. Most of the brightening is done within, the first half a day, and then it goes much slower. I took them out, rinsed them, blew them as dry as I could with the air compressor, let them sit right side up on a rag overnight to finish drying out, and then I dosed them with some 303 aerospace protectant, let that soak in for a few hours, and wiped it down. And when I say soak in, plastic does absorb a little moisture, but really what you're doing is just letting the liquid wet out over the entire surface, so it's getting in all the nooks and crannies. If you just spray it on and wipe it right off, you're going to miss some spots. And then I laid the keys out in the correct order. I find that easier to do. And then you can just pop them on one at a time like this. That looks so much better. And we'll save the space bar for last. Just holding these white nails under here up while plugging the space bar in. It seemed to do the trick, and even the little feet for underneath it came out good. Now we just gotta wait for the cover to be done. Well, all the parts of our keyboard are out of the Retr0Brite tank now, and they look great. I did the same thing with the housing as I did with the keys. Dried them off the air compressor, let it set, and then coated it with TRO3 protectant. Let that soak in for a while and wiped it down. Now, all we gotta do is assemble things. And I think we're going to have to start with the bottom cover and yada yada. Anyhow, let's go. Okay, I folded in the little springs for the legs. We can set those in there now. And set that out of the way temporarily. I'm glad I marked which end of the keyboard cable went to the keyboard part, because I thought they were identical on each end, but alas, they are not. They are opposites of each other. It will probably still work, but I marked the keyboard side with a black mark there. So I should just be able to slip this guy in here and be all set. Okay. That goes like that, I believe. Okay. Now, Jeffrey, silly me. Those go like that. What was I thinking? Okay. That sits like that. That plugs in like that. Okay. And that goes like that. And we have a washer, a nut, and a screw. Yep, you can see on the back where that star washer was dug into the circuit board. And yeah, that is a 5/16, which is right at 8 millimeters for those of you in metric land. Okay. See, these things right here push down on the cable. Okay, I'd actually taken a picture of that, and it was laid out exactly like this, with the braided cable on top. So I should set down, oops, you know what? This is a very important spot there first. Glad that came off there. That made that so much easier. I polished that with some of that Novus plastic polish, and it came out really, really nice. That. There we go. Wow, look how nice that looks. These feet are difficult. That doesn't really snap in there. So I guess you just gotta get the screw started and hold it the best you can. Okay. So what I did was snug the screw up all the way down and backed it off a turn. It's holding things tight, but there's still a little wiggle room for getting everything else started. I bet they had a an assembly fixture for this in the factory. Got a little roll of rubber strip from McMaster Car. It needed to be 3/4 of an inch wide, which is 19 millimeters. I could only get it in an inch wide, which is 25 millimeters. So I cut a piece to length, and now I've got a board that is 3/4 of an inch wide. And hopefully we can use this as a straight edge to cut our little bit of rubber here. Okay, I think we've got it trapped under there sufficiently. Trying to put pressure mostly where I'm cutting to keep the rubber from moving around. First, score it. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. I'm going to clean both sides of this with some soap and water. Well, it's actually like Formula 409 or something like that. Take a bit of alcohol. Go over this end. There we go. That looks nice. Now, I was thinking about spray gluing this guy down. And I remembered I had this Scotch real thin double-sided tape. I've used this to remount rubber feet on vintage computers. It works really good. And it's pretty thin, so it's going to be similar to what was used originally. The downside is it's not quite wide enough. So I'll have to put 2 strips and cut it and waste a little, but I think we can live with that. I did a test earlier and found that it stuck really well to the cleaned rubber. I'll just use that to kind of... That is, if you can see that, ooh, get it under the camera there, catalog number 136. 3M double-sided tape. If I can find the link to that on Amazon, I'll put it in the description below. Really like that stuff. Now, I'm just going to try to use the butt end of the scissors here to press the tape into the rubber. And after putting this tape on here, it just occurred to me I should have tried test fitting this on the keyboard first. Yeah. Well, what you gonna do, right? So, hopefully, we start on one end. Place that in a corner. Well, it's not perfect. There's a couple little bubbles. The biggest one is right here. Well, maybe if I keep playing with it, I can work that bubble to the edge. It's not quite as bad as it was to start with. So, I'll play with that a little longer, but I think we can consider the keyboard is finished, and now we can start putting the case together. I pulled the case fan out of the 4P, thinking I was going to lubricate it and try to quiet it down, but it's really not too noisy for what it is. This is a Panaflow brushless. It's a ball bearing model. And yeah, it's not too bad. I think it's just that the case, which is right here, is just acting as a resonant chamber. And the fan was screwed to the case with these screws with no rubber isolators. So I've got a dB meter app here on my phone, which isn't the most accurate thing in the world, but I thought we would try to do a little comparison. I've got the fan and my phone about 300 millimeters apart, and I'll put my wireless mic right down here beside the phone in this corner and hook the fan up. And I measured this earlier and had about 15 dB background and 26 dB fan. So we'll try it again and see what we get now. So we can see the difference here. It went from 16 to 30. So now what I will do is put the fan back in the case as it was originally, and we'll measure the noise at the same distance away, and then we'll add a rubber isolator setup like this with a rubber washer on each side. I didn't have any rubber washers, but I had a piece of rubber and a hollow punch set, so I made my own. I've used that hollow punch set a lot. I think I got that from Amazon. If so, I will put the link in the description down below. Here is our test setup for the original mounting. And with the fan on. It's a little higher numerically, maybe 1 or 2 dB, but the sound is definitely different. It's echoing more. Okay, now we've got the fan mounted with the homemade rubber washers. Let's listen to the background noise. And with fan. I don't know. It's perhaps marginally quieter. We'll see when we play back the video. I took some satin black spray paint and painted the faceplate of the 5 1/4 to 3.5 inch drive adapter and the faceplate of the Gotek, and that's a fairly decent match. Of course, the textures in all three of these don't match, but the color's close enough that I think it'll work. And of course, I didn't paint all of the Gotek or the drive adapter, because it doesn't really matter. Only the part you see actually matters. So it'll go something like that. I think that'll look real nice. Now I'm going to get this Gotek screwed into this drive frame, and then we'll start reassembling this thing. I've got the screws in the drive base started, so we need to cinch those up the rest of the way. Now, all these little black screws are the same really. There was a few of them that were slightly shorter, and the exploded parts diagram calls out some 3/8 long screws and some 1/4 inch long screws, but most of the screws in this thing look like they're closer to 3/8. although not quite 3/8, so I think maybe they just kind of simplified the bill of materials after a while. There's been a few different versions of this guy. Remember, there's these 2 screws hiding out on the bottom here of the drive bay. There we go. Now the next order of business is to put the main circuit board on the bottom. I left the top off here so we can get to these 2 screws that hold the front bezel on. In the first video, when I mentioned the slot for the modem, somebody, I think, thought I was pointing inside here. I was referring to this area on the bottom. There's a little card edge connector here, which is where the modem plugged in. Went ahead and connected our floppy cable here. And it just occurred to me that I can get this bottom started, but then we're going to have to connect the keyboard through this slot here. So I think I'll just start a few screws in this thing, and then we'll get the keyboard hooked up, and then finish up putting this guy on. I'm not sure, since a lot of these screws were out of this machine when I got it. I wasn't exactly sure how it went. The exploded parts diagram was helpful. And I'll also put a link to a website in the description below, which has pictures of all the screws and description of how to take things apart. That was very helpful too, just figuring out which screws went where. Okay, I've got the keyboard setting here to the side, and rotate this around. Okay, you certainly got to hold your mouth just right to get that guy plugged back in. I kind of missed. If the hole had been a little further that way, it would have made it a lot easier. So, okay. And then this ground is going to go something like that, I am guessing. This was already loose when I got it, I think. So, but that looks pretty accurate. So now I'll go ahead and get the screws put in around the periphery here, and we'll turn our attention to the front bezel. I am cinching up the last couple screws holding the front bezel on. Now, this long screwdriver is essential. You might remember the screws that are here and here were hard to get to because they're at an angle. So I borrowed from my automotive toolbox. I got a little 1/4" drive set with a U-joint and a screwdriver tip. That way I could get in there like this and get to those. That's still not ideal, but it works. I was able to get them started straight and get them tightened up. So, had a bit of difficulty when I went to hook up the disk drives. This is the original cable that was in there, and this is drive 1 connector. That's the drive on this side. This is the drive 0 connector, which is the Gotek. And even if these were the original drives, this cable would not have been long enough. It won't stretch going from up there to, yeah, this is 0. So it would have been like this, and it just won't stretch. So I don't know if this is from another TRS-80. Might just be able to see, probably not. I'll put a picture up here that somebody posted on the Discord. The connectors here have some pins missing, which is what changes it from device 1 to device 0. So I had some of these PC cables like this, you know, the standard ones, and one connector has both the card edge and the regular header type, and I cut this end off of it and released this connector, cut that there, and recrimp this connector down in this area. So I made my own cable. Hopefully this will work. I haven't tried it yet. Need to get this spun around to give it a try. So got the power supply hooked back up and wound up. You can see this is setting off the ground with that little rubber piece that's on the bottom for the keyboard stop. It was easier putting a box underneath here to hold everything up. Anyhow, I'll spin this around and we'll turn it on, make sure it boots up before we put the rest of the clothes back on it. Okay, it boots up and the floppy drive cable works. I was able to go into DOS and format a disk and read the directory and whatnot. I swapped out that big USB thumb drive for this little bitty thing right here, so it doesn't stick out and look funny. I kind of like just the standard Gotek with the 7-segment display. It looks more period correct than having an OLED on there. That's just my personal preference though. The OLEDs are rather nice. I've got the diagnostic disc booted up right now, and it has a video test pattern. And it may not come across on the recording, but there is a slight dip here and a little here. If I hold that up, you might just be able to see it peeking up maybe half a line, half a pixel on the corners. The adjustment for that is actually a physical adjustment. I'll show you how that's done here. Notice I rotated the power supply over and I fixed it in place with one screw. That's rather convenient being able to do that. Now, this is not only live with mains voltage, you've got your high voltage right here, which is going to the CRT. So everything you do in here, you're going to do with one hand. And you need a plastic adjustment tool like this. It's got a end like this that's made to fit the core in an adjustable transformer or choke like that. And then there's a screwdriver tip for pots. Don't use a metal screwdriver on here. It has to be plastic. This one is part of this set, which was my dad's. People that are experienced working on CRTs and other things with high voltage will do a curious thing. When they get ready to stick one hand in there, they'll put the other hand behind their back. You do not want to get high voltage across your chest, so if you have one hand behind your back, that makes that a lot more difficult to do. So for things like horizontal hold, vertical hold, focus, they're on these pots here, and the manual tells you how to go about setting those. For the distortion, I'm going to spin the camera around here so you can see, while being careful not to test everything. You see all these little spikes sticking out on this yellow piece of plastic? Those are to hold these magnets right here. You put a magnet on and you rotate the magnet and watch the screen. So I've rotated this magnet. You can see one side of it's white. I rotated it maybe about 15 degrees counterclockwise from this, or clockwise from this orientation, and that helped out. It's not perfect. I don't have any more of these little square magnets with the hole in the middle. So if you've got pin cushion, other types of distortion, you put magnets at other places, rotate them around, and then put a dab of glue on there when you're done. I've got this adjusted about as good as it's going to get. I'm going to carefully show you the screen while I carefully adjust this. You can see how it's kind of pulling in. I guess I can't point with the same hand I'm holding the camera with. It's pulling in the top right corner of the screen. And now it kind of squared it back up. I'll put that about where it was. Yeah. That's about as good as I can get it with the one magnet, but that's fine. And I'm going to put a little drop of glue on there, and that'll be fine. You might notice one other thing looking at the front here. This badge is missing. It did not survive the Retr0Brite treatment. The clear rubber coating on that softens up in the hydrogen peroxide. Luckily, somebody's remaking these. It's the same guy that makes these power supplies here. So I chatted with him by email, and he's going to be at Tandy Assembly 2022 this year, as I will be, so I will pick up one from him then. Save a little shipping. I'm not in a hurry. And it'll be nice seeing Jay again. So now I need to put this power supply back in place after I glue that magnet in place. And then we can go ahead and proceed to put the rest of it back together. Oh, in this section of the diagnostic menu, there's one other thing I wanted to show you. We'll press R to go back there. There is another keyboard test here, which tests things like shifts and whatnot, which are harder to test on the other keyboard test. So break, clear, enter, all the special keys, space. So just thought I would mention that, and you can test the different video modes, that type of thing. And you can also test the high-res video board if you have that. I do not have that. I can't show you where it plugs into. It plugs into the main board. But anyhow, maybe we'll play with that someday. You can probably still hear the fan, even though my furnace is on. The rubber isolators helped a bit. I ordered a little fan control circuit board and thought I might try that. It comes with the temperature probe and everything like that. It was like 10 bucks. It'll work with these old 2-wire fans. So just let me know if you'd like to see a video about that and just see how much we can quiet this down and make sure it still stays nice and cool inside. So let me know what you think. Started putting this back sheet metal on and the handle brace. Now the handle brace has 2 larger screws here, and there's 2 that come in under here. Those are the same type of screw. I found out that the shorter black screws I found are for these plastic covers. I only come up with 3 of those. One of them was missing. So I put in 4 number 6 screws, 3/8 but chrome plated, that I had over here where they won't be seen. And I put 3 shorter ones in here, and I ground down one of the longer black ones and put in there. And now we are not short any screws, so I need to finish tightening these up, and then we can slide the back cover on and fight with getting the handle on there. Okay, here goes nothing. Slip that down on there. I've just got the keyboard kind of hanging out here to the side with the cord draped out the correct way. That seems to be okay. And I'm guessing that this would go like this with the letters at the top, since this is the top. These white painted screws go on the sides. We'll get those started. Guessing I'll just try to get on the screws as good as we can and tighten them down as good as we can. Well, that sort of works. Yeah, there's enough flexibility in the handle that you can get the screwdriver on there good enough. Okay, yep, that goes down there like it should. Check the flap here. That looks fine in there. We'll have a look at that later. Okay, I need to tighten up the screws on the sides here. And then we can rotate it around so it's sitting like normal. Notice I put a towel here under it. Since we've got the case clean now, try to keep it that way. I've got to put the little leveling foot back in here. I guess it's not really leveling, it's kind of screen tilting. Like that. And I'll get this set up again. Well, I think this old 4P turned out quite nicely. It looks much better than what we started with, and it works too. I managed to download some games and play around with that. It's a little confusing when you're starting out with the TRS-80 because not only are there multiple versions of DOS from Radio Shack, but there's multiple aftermarket DOSes, and you never know what you're going to get when you download things. There's a program called TRS Tools that lets you look at a disk image and tell you what format it actually is. It might be saved as a .dsk file, but it might be something different internally, which is rather confusing. And if you try to convert that, which with the HXC software, it doesn't know what it's working with, and it probably won't work. So I might do a separate episode on that because this one's already pretty long and it's a confusing subject that I need to learn a lot more about. But thought we might play a little of this Gobbling Box program, which is a Pac-Man clone, and then we'll take a closer look at the machine, kind of do a 360 or at least a 180 so you can see how everything turned out. I've adjusted things to get the best image through the camera. Yeah. I've actually had to adjust the brightness all the way down. It looks slightly dark in person, but it looks much better on the camera that way. And let's see, if we press enter, the typical beep and boop sound of an onboard speaker. No, we don't need instructions, and we'll put it at the easy level. And this uses the arrow keys on the keyboard, S to start. So it works like any other typical Pac-Man game, and I died. And this is just using character graphics, so with that in mind, I don't think it's a bad clone. Oh no, I died again. Okay, I'm going to try to eat one of the power pills. This game doesn't let you stop, really. I don't know if I'll be able to get to one of the... no, I missed all the ghost. Go up, go sideways. There we go. That's what happens when you get the ghost. I got a big whopping 5,000 points now. Go down, down. See, now I'm trying to run into the ghost and they're all running away from me. That's hilarious. You can try to stay away from them, you can't, and when you try to catch them, you can't. There we go. Okay. One game successfully. So yeah, the TRS-80s were not game machines. These were more, business and productivity. But this is a great little portable machine. And it's actually portable. I'd say it it's a little better than luggable, more portable. It's not too heavy and it's still fairly rugged. So let's take a look at how the case turned out now. I'll cut in some pictures of what we started with, and we'll look at it with it all buttoned up as well. We'll try to do a flyby here with a little handheld shaky cam. As you can see, the whole case came out really well, even though setting up that huge Retr0Brite tank was kind of a pain. There's still a little shading in here which was there originally. It's kind of rather difficult to see. You can just see a slightly lighter shade here. It's like that on the other side too. I don't know if there was something there originally, a sticker or whatnot. The front and back came out fairly even, which matches the front cover, which is its original shade. It was not Retr0Brite. It came off a different machine. Just what the guy had I bought it from. And inside the cover, you see it even has a nifty spot for the power cord. This came with a black power cord, and I thought, you know, this ain't cleaned up so well. We need to have a matching power cord, so I dug through my box of cords and found this one and cleaned it up with a magic eraser. So hopefully the front will go on with it like this. I think that's a pretty nifty addition. They put in there the little trough to hold the power cord. And here is the back. Got our handle that pulls out. You notice there's still some yellow tinge. I don't know if you'll be able to see that on the video. A little yellow tinge around the handle. But it looks good. Inside the flap looks good. The Retr0Brite did not bother these plastic stickers at all. The remainder of the warranty label is there, and I just kind of left the remnants of it. I thought that kind of made it look more original in a way. All in all, a nice looking little machine now. And here it is with the top on. Sorry for the shadows, but you see the color of the top. It's a pretty good match for everything. It's a little yellow on this side, so I might have Retr0Brited it just a bit, but I think that is a good example of how plastics yellow differently. Well, I think our little 4P here turned out great, and the question is, what do we do next? I ordered that fan speed control, and I thought it might be fun to see how much that quiets it down. Let me know if you'd like to see a video on that. That might be an interesting addition to many vintage computers. Just make them a little quieter. But what should we do with this TRS-80? It's not really a games machine, although there is a lot of games for them. What type of productivity software would people have used on it back in the day? What sort of industrial automation or control projects might we be able to do with it that takes advantage of its portable form factor? If you have any ideas or things you would like to see, well, just let me know in the comments section down below. Thanks to everyone who helps support the Hey Birt channel through Patreon and other means. It's greatly appreciated. If you would like some information about that, well, just look in the description down below. There are some links there. I try to put links to all the chemicals and things that I use during a restoration in the description too. People ask for those, so just put them down there for your convenience. If you have any questions or comments, well, just let me know in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. And until next time, bye.